Iron Crown Enterprises produced role-playing, board, miniature, and collectible card games since 1980. Many of ICE's better-known products were related to J.R.R. Tolkien's world of Middle-earth, but the Rolemaster rules system, and its science fiction equivalent, Spacemaster, have been the foundation of ICE's business history. In college in the late 1970s, while running a 6-year Dungeons & Dragons campaign set in J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth, Pete Fenlon, Coleman Charlton, and Kurt Fisher began to develop a set of unique house rules, after most of them had graduated from the University of Virginia in 1980. Many of the group's principals decided to turn their rules into a business and formed Iron Crown Enterprises, named after a regalia of Middle-earth. Besides Fenlon and Charlton, the original ICE also included Richard H. Britton, Terry K. Amthor, Bruce Shelley, Bruce Neidlinger, Kurt Fisher, Heike Kubash, Olivia Fenlon, and a few others. ICE was incorporated in 1980, shortly after the youngest of the principal founders graduated from the University of Virginia. Among the founders were Pete Fenlon, Rick Britton, Coleman Charlton, Bruce Neidlinger, Terry K. Amthor, Kurt Fisher, Bruce Shelley, and Heike Kubash. The company originally only had a few full-time staff, relying on volunteer work from the other founders. But as income increased, it brought more on as employees. ICE quickly published 3 products: Arms Law, The Iron Wind, and Manassas. Arms Law was the first release of the house rules from the University of Virginia days, and thus became the start of Rolemaster. Although at that time Rolemaster was not seen as a standalone RPG but was offered as an alternative combat system for AD&D. The Iron Wind was a system-generic campaign centered on a fantastic island, and although it was unsupplemented for years, it would eventually be recognized as the first release in ICE's Rolemaster campaign setting. Manassas was a Civil War-era wargame set in ICE's home state of Virginia. ICE began by publishing a series of rules supplements, beginning with Arms Law, which were intended to serve as modular add-ons to other RPG systems offering greater detail. This was followed by Spell Law and Character Campaign Law. In time, these supplements were tied together to form an RPG system of their own. Rolemaster. Concurrent with the rules supplements, ICE began releasing world campaign content materials in what was originally called the Rolemaster series. Beginning with Iron Wind, Rolemaster had grown out of a Middle-earth game, so ICE approached Tolkien Enterprises seeking a license to The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, which Tolkien Enterprises granted because no one else had ever asked. Tolkien Enterprises signed an exclusive, worldwide license with ICE in 1982, and ICE started the Middle-earth line off with a generic sourcebook that could be used with AD&D or other games, called A Campaign, an adventure guidebook for Middle-earth. The company enjoyed a sudden jump in status when it acquired the license to produce an official fantasy RPG based upon J.R.R. Tolkien's world of Middle-earth, which would come to be known as MERP. According to some interpretations, at the time of its publication, ICE's Middle-earth role-playing was the second best-selling fantasy RPG after TSR's Dungeons & Dragons. ICE then added the science fiction RPGs Spacemaster and Cyberspace to its line, and, with the rise of collectible card games, the Middle-earth collectible card game, ICE also published a moderately successful space miniatures battle game called Silent Death based on Spacemaster but with simpler mechanics. Silent Death was released in 2 major editions, with supplemental books and a fair number of paintable lead miniatures. ICE also expanded its original Rolemaster supplements into a full-blown fantasy world to support Rolemaster, called the Shadow World, supported by dozens of adventures and sourcebooks. ICE signed in 1986 a publication contract to take over Hero Games production and distribution. Later, with Hero Games staff leaving for other jobs, ICE took over the creative reins of Hero's products. Iron Crown branched out into the solo gaming books under the Tolkien Quest and Sherlock Holmes Solo Mysteries book lines. Unknown to ICE at the time, the Middle-earth Quest books violated ICE and Tolkien Enterprise a contract with Tolkien's book publishing licensee, George Allen and Unwin. ICE was forced to recall and destroy the whole line of books, at devastating cost. Meanwhile, ICE sued the Narnia licensor as they turned out to not have the necessary rights to license Narnia to ICE. That company went bankrupt from the legal settlement and was unable to pay ICE their damages. ICE reached terms in 1988 for a gamebook license with the estate of J.R.R. Tolkien and George Allen and Unwin for 4 new Middle-earth Quest books, beginning with Spy in Isengard. However, the solo gamebook market was going soft by this time. ICE cancelled all solo gamebook lines, with dozens of books still in development. Returns were high on the Sherlock Holmes Solo Mysteries line. All this brought ICE to near bankruptcy in a voluntary type of receivership. Despite ICE's many successes and overcoming many setbacks over 17 years, in 1997 ICE suffered financial difficulties from a rapid decline in its distribution net. Nearly 70% of ICE's distributors either went bankrupt or became moribund. There has been some debate over whether Tolkien Enterprises forced ICE into bankruptcy in order to get the gaming license in anticipation of the upcoming new movie franchise. The company entered bankruptcy and filed for Chapter 7 in October 2000. This bankruptcy cost ICE the Middle-earth license, ending both the MERP and CCG lines. Many of the authors and illustrators were not paid for substantial amounts of work. Aurigas Aldebaran. In December 2001, ICE's assets were purchased by Aurigas Aldebaran LLC, an intellectual property ownership company backed by several wealthy individuals. The new owners licensed the Iron Crown Enterprise name and other assets to Mjolnir LLC until 2011. Starting in January 2011, licensing was transferred to Guild Companion Publications Limited. Publications: Board Games Manassas, The Riddle of the Ring, The Battle of Five Armies, The Lonely Mountain, Lair of Smaug the Dragon, Cleric's Revenge, Star Strike, Armored Assault, The Hobbit Adventure, Solo Gaming Books Middle-earth Quest line Tolkien Quest Night of the Nazgul, Spy in Isengard, Sherlock Holmes Solo Mysteries line Murder at the Diogenes Club, Narnia Solo Games line Return to Deathwater, Role-playing games The Iron Wind, a campaign and adventure guidebook for Middle-earth, Angmar, Ardor in Southern Middle-earth, MERP, Middle-earth role-playing Bree and the Barrow Downs Dark Mage of Rudera Lords of Middle-earth Minas Tirith Minas Ithil Palantir Quest, Kin Strife Hands of the Healer, Rolemaster, a role-playing game system, Arms Lore Spell Lore Character Lore Claw Lore War Lore Sea Lore Rolemaster Campaign Lore Rolemaster 2nd Edition Rolemaster Companion Rolemaster 2nd Edition 2nd Iteration Outlaw, a historical setting source book for Rolemaster at Rapier's Point, a historical setting source book for Rolemaster Oriental Companion, a historical setting source book for Rolemaster Shadow World, The Cloud Lords of Tanara Shadow World Master Atlas Shadow World Master Atlas Shadow World Powers of Light and Darkness Demons on the Burning Night Islands of the Oracle Kingdom of the Desert Jewel Corborn, Land of the Silver Mist, Space Master, an adaptation of Rolemaster in a sci-fi setting. 1st Edition. 2nd Edition Future Lore Tech Lore Action on Acacia Outstation Imperial Crisis Space Master Companion Lost Telepaths Beyond the Core The Cygnus Conspiracy Tales from Deep Space War on a Distant Moon The Durandrium Find Disaster on Adani's 3 Raiders from the Frontier Space Master Companion Dark Space Aliens and Artifacts Time Riders Space Master Companion 2 Cyberspace Core Rulebook Sprawl Gangs and Megacorps Edge on Cyber Rogues The Body Bank Death Valley Free Prison Death Game 2090 Cyber Skelter Chicago Arcology Cyber Europe Campaign Classics line, dual-statted for Hero System and Rollmaster. Robin Hood, Mythic Greece, Vikings, Pirates, Mythic Egypt, Arabian Nights. Lord of the Rings adventure game. High adventure role-playing harp, College of Magic's harp, martial law. Miniatures games, Silent Death, Bladestorm. Collectible card games, Middle-earth collectible card game. Warlords collectible card game.